Live from WXOU at Oakland University, it's the GioMoShow. Now, give it up for your host, GioMoShow.
Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the GioMoShow, right here on WXOU, 88.3 FM, Auburn Hills, Michigan, Oakland University, for all your station identification features. I am your host of the GioMoShow, Giovanni Mosheri, and the GioMoShow is your home for all Oakland sports and beyond, right here on 88.3 FM. Every episode of the GioMoShow is also uploaded as a podcast, both on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So if you're not with me right now on 88.3 FM or the TuneIn Radio app, then you can find it on the GioMoShow's YouTube channel or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find it. Give it a like and a subscribe, a 5-star review, whatever you do to support your podcast. In addition to that, you can go and subscribe to WXOU Sports right here on YouTube. We'll be having coverage of club football coming up in the fall, and they had their schedule released, and we'll have 3 home games this year to cover for you, as well as an away trip to Toledo. So be sure not to miss anything of full broadcast highlights and interviews on WXOU Sports on YouTube. And otherwise, you can follow WXOU all over social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You can find their website, WXOU.org, for all of that information. And you can follow me as well. The GioMoShow has its own Instagram page at the GioMoShow, as well as we relaunched the TikTok account for the GioMoShow under the same name and address at the GioMoShow, and I'm on Twitter as well. You can find me at GioMoSheri, WXOU, for all your updates on the show, for conversation with me. If you want to get involved in the show on social media, in between shows, if you got a thought on a clip I released or a thought that I had, use the hashtag, the GioMoShow, to get involved with the show. And for this week's edition of the GioMoShow, usually we do it Tuesdays from noon to 1, but unfortunately these past few weeks have been a bit tumultuous, thus has had to be moved to Wednesdays. We'll try to get back on schedule in a jiffy, so don't you worry. And for today's menu, we continue for part 3 of our series of season reviews at Oakland University, where now that there are no sports going on current, then we go through the seasons of the past. We're starting chronologically. We had men's soccer a couple of weeks ago. We had women's soccer last week, and we follow it up with this week. We'll be going through Oakland University volleyball and the great improvement that they've made over their previous season into this 2023 season. We'll be going through the details of all of that, and in addition to that, as usual, we'll be going over this past week of the USPBL. Can you believe we're already 5 weeks into the season? And couldn't you believe it? My Hoppers are still on top, although the gap is closing, and we'll talk about that with the 5 games played this week and weekend. We'll be going through those in a little bit more of a general overlook fashion for this week. But we'll wrap up the show as well. Well, the NBA has been happening, and the Boston Celtics, they've won the championship this year. And as of today, Monty Williams, head coach of the Detroit Pistons, has a new title. That title being the former head coach of the Detroit Pistons, as he was dismissed from his position. So we'll be talking all about that. We'll wrap up the show with that one. So now that we've given you the full rundown of what we're going to be doing with the show here, let's go into 2023 Oakland University volleyball. And I always like to start the season reviews with a look in the previous season, because you got to put into perspective kind of what they were coming into for this 2023 season. So for the 2022 season is where we'll put our attention to at first. They had an overall record of just 11 wins and 19 losses, 7-11 in conference play, and that causing them to miss the Horizon League tournament that hosts only the top 6 seeds for the conference, as opposed to welcoming all 10 teams into the tournament like some of the other sports do. But volleyball and soccer has followed the same format as well. Both the men's and women's soccer teams, they allow the top 6 in. So, unfortunately, the previous year, Oakland unable to make the cut to make the tournament last year, and thus they had a bit of a bad taste left in their mouth for that one. And I'm going to make a callback to a really early episode of the JoMo Show. This one was last year. Around this time, maybe like a couple of weeks ago last year, I talked to Patty Cesarini, one of the seniors on this year's volleyball team and a great friend of the program, friend of Oakland University, friend of the JoMo Show. And I talked to her about not only her origins in the sport of volleyball and how it was almost basketball, but I also talked to her about that previous season, about how they didn't make the tournament, they didn't make the cut, and she was telling me that it's not the standard that they want. They were not happy about it, and they want next season to be a big improvement, and it's just they were not satisfied with the result of that 2022 season. So with that, and you can go onto the JoMo Show's YouTube channel here. Scroll way down to the JoMo Show interviews. That was back when I had the JoMo Show interviews here on the JoMo Show YouTube channel. Since then, we've moved them over to WXOU Sports. Another reason to go and subscribe to that one. But you can go and check that interview out with Patty Cesarini to get kind of a view of that, and also learn about her as an upcoming broadcaster and now soon to be, or currently, retired volleyball player. So that's there for you if you'd like to watch it. But that all sets the stage for this year. In the 2023 season, the Golden Grizzlies improved greatly from the records both in conference and overall. 17 wins is what they had last year, a 17-14 overall record, and 11-7 conference record, good enough to get them in that 6th spot and into the Horizon League tournament. But before we get into that, let's take you through the flow of the season. We'll go through game by game or kind of tournament by tournament. We'll get you through the rest of the season to kind of have you with a sense of a flow as to how this season went for the Golden Grizzlies. So it started off, we go to August 25th of 2021. They had a 3-game tournament in the Chicago Classic where they faced Lindenwood, UIC, and St. Thomas of Minnesota. In that stretch of 3 games, unfortunately, the Golden Grizzlies would end that one 1-2, suffering a 5-game loss to Lindenwood and a 3-game sweep against former Horizon League team UIC. And then at St. Thomas, they cleaned it up with a 3-2-1 win over St. Thomas to get them to a 1-2 start to the out-of-conference part of the season. They then move on to the Popcorn Classic, that one being held in Valparaiso, also, or not Horizon League, but a former foe of the Golden Grizzlies in leagues past. This one, a 3-game tournament with Eastern Michigan, Western Illinois, and hosting Valparaiso. The Eastern Michigan Eagles fell to the Golden Grizzlies. We gave them a 4-game loss. I guess I'm twisting my words here. A 3-1 victory for the Golden Grizzlies over the Eastern Michigan Eagles. This is at September 1st, and now we're at the top of September. Western Illinois would suffer the same fate to the Golden Grizzlies. We won and beat them 3-1. But hosting Valparaiso gave it to the Golden Grizzlies as they were sent home with a bad taste in their mouth. An 0-3 loss for the Golden Grizzlies in that last game of the Popcorn Classic. That puts them at an even 3-3 going into the Golden Grizzly Invitational, as Oakland hosted one of these 3-game tournaments in the arena, once again facing Eastern Michigan, as well as hosting Kansas State and Kansas City and Chicago State. As the host, Oakland got their first win. They repeated a 3-1 win over Eastern Michigan once again. But then against Kansas City, a 1-3 loss was had, and then against Chicago State, the Golden Grizzlies were swept. So unfortunately, they end 1-2 in their own tournament. That's setting them at a 4-5. Yes, a 4-5 record. I won't be going through the entire record through the whole way, but I'm at least trying to keep track. So they had one non-tournament. This wasn't an event, but they went then on September 12th to Toledo to face the Rockets, where the Golden Grizzlies got a 5-game win, 3-2 over the Toledo Rockets to set them up for the Saluki Invitational, where they had a couple of games against UT Martin and Southern Illinois. They would split those 2 games, winning in 5 against UT Martin and then losing in 4 to Southern Illinois to set them up at a 6-6 record going into the Horizon League play of the regular season. We're now moved down to September 19th of this past fall. The Golden Grizzlies would start off on the right foot, facing Purdue Fort Wayne in Purdue Fort Wayne, giving them a sweep. 3-0 Golden Grizzlies in their first Horizon League match against the Mastodons. Unfortunately, when they come home for their first Horizon League match, or first home Horizon League match, Youngstown State Penguins gave them the business with a 1-3. Or, excuse me for always going backwards with the records, but Oakland will lose 1-3 to Youngstown State in their first home Horizon League game. But not far after, in that same weekend, we would host Robert Morris, where we fixed that up real quick. Swept Robert Morris 3-0. To put the Golden Grizzlies now 2-1 in Horizon League play at September 23rd. They would then go on a road trip. They would go in their next 3 games would be on the road against IUPUI, Wright State, and Northern Kentucky. Oakland would go 2-1 during this 3-game road trip, putting them now 2-1 plus 2-1 is 4-2. excuse my math. I'm about to have an engineering degree, but I should be better at this. Either way, against IUPUI in Indianapolis, Golden Grizzlies would survive and get the 5-game victory over the Jaguars, and then face Wright State. Get that one done in 4 as they beat the Raiders 3-1. But then Northern Kentucky, their final game of that road trip, now in September 30th, they were swept, unfortunately, by the Norse 0-3. But still, the Golden Grizzlies doing very well to start their season. Currently, at this point, and again, I'm going to review this, and when you guys listen to the podcast, I'll be sure to trim this up a little bit, and we'll clean up the action. But 2-1 and 2-1, that puts them at a 4-2 start to their regular season, and then they come home for not only October 6th, but they had a weekend of home games against the Wisconsin teams as well as a part of homecoming weekend. But on October 6th, the Golden Grizzlies faced Cleveland State, where the Golden Grizzlies got that one done in 4, getting a win against Cleveland State 3-1 to set them at a 5-2 Horizon League record. Then the next weekend, the Golden Grizzlies would host both the Wisconsin teams. On homecoming weekend, the Panthers were the first one to come to town, and unfortunately they gave the Golden Grizzlies a sweep themselves, giving them their 3rd loss in the Horizon League season. But on Senior Day, this one, October 14th, still part of homecoming weekend, Oakland against Green Bay would win it in 5. That one being close the entire way through. The Golden Grizzlies get their win on Senior Day. Many of these games, by the way, especially the home ones in particular, were on WXOU Sports. We got the full broadcast, and we got interviews with some of the players after those games, those matches as well. So if you want a little bit more insight as to these games, you can listen to some of the broadcasts and some of the highlights and interviews that we have with the players over on WXOU Sports. But the Golden Grizzlies would advance to 6-3 in the Horizon League season with a win over Green Bay, surviving in 5. They celebrated many seniors. We'll get to that towards the end of the recap here, but we continue through the season. So now the Golden Grizzlies are 6-3, and they go back on the road. October 20th and 21st, they face Robert Morris and Youngstown State. Robert Morris got their revenge after being swept by the Golden Grizzlies. Robert Morris would win that one 3-1. And then Youngstown State would be the next on the road trip. And remember, when Oakland hosted them early in the season, Oakland lost that one 1-3. But when they visited them in Youngstown, Ohio, Golden Grizzlies got that one done in 3 to put them at a 7-4 record in the Horizon League season. 3-game homestand is what's up next. October 24th, 27th, and 28th is their 3-game homestand. We get into near the Halloween time of the season. Oakland would get their season sweep over the Mastodons on Pride Night, winning that one in 5 against the Mastodons on October 24th. Then, a packed weekend, October 27th and 28th. Northern Kentucky was the first one. Oakland gets that one done in 5, but Wright State would come to town and give the Golden Grizzlies a 4-game loss. I want to add a little color to that Wright State game. That was a Halloween game. It was a costume contest, and we were there on WXOU dressed up on the sideline. That one was so much fun to do. It was me and Harj and Bhutar on the call. I literally grew a mustache for all of October to have the Luigi costume with a real mustache. So I called the game in a Luigi costume, and Harj was in a full Batman costume the entire game. Even a photographer, Skip Townsend, got a shot of me. Not looking, obviously, and I look terrible, but with my headset on in a Luigi costume, he got a great shot of me during that game. So I wanted to give a shout out to that one. I got that one on my Instagram if you guys want to check out what I looked like for that one. That one was fun to do despite the result of the game. So with that, a 2-1 homestand will put the Golden Grizzlies at 9-5. Really hope I'm keeping this right, or else the entire podcast is just going to end up being wrong. But we now move into the November month, the final month of the season for Oakland Volleyball, for Horizon League Volleyball. They would go to Cleveland State on November 3rd, and they would get the season sweep over the Cleveland State Vikings as well. They would get this one done in 5 to move them up to 10-5 on the season. And for the Golden Grizzlies, they would add on to it, hosting IUPUI for their final home game of the season. Golden Grizzlies would get the sweep, giving them 11 conference wins. And remember, last year they only had 7. And for those conference wins, 11 marks the most in Golden Grizzlies volleyball since 2017. In the past, this is, to put that into words and not just numbers, this is the best season Oakland Volleyball has had in terms of wins in 7 years. So that's a big step, and that's a big move for the program, no doubt about it. But unfortunately, there was a couple of games left in the season. They would go to Wisconsin to face Green Bay and Milwaukee, losing both of them to put them at an 11-7 conference record, and that means I was tracking it right the entire way through. My counting was correct. So where that puts Oakland, now we get into the Horizon League tournament. Regular season is done. 11-7 is their record going into it. Good enough for 6th place and good enough for a spot in the Horizon League tournament, where the Golden Grizzlies did not make it last year. This year, they do. And to give you the full standings going into that Horizon League tournament, Wright State was first place with a 15-3 conference record, followed by Green Bay and Milwaukee, both 13-5. Northern Kentucky would be 12-6. Oakland would, in fact, make it 5th place. Excuse me. They are the 5th. Oakland was the 5th seed in the tournament, not the 6th seed. So they didn't just get in. They solidified themselves in. So Oakland was 5th place, 11-7. Cleveland State would be the 6th place team, 10-8. Out of the 18 conference matches played. So that sets up Oakland with a quarterfinals matchup against 4th place Northern Kentucky. And I believe it was Wright State that ended up hosting this one because of their number 1 seed. Yep, this one is at Wright State. Oakland would unfortunately suffer a loss in the first round of the tournament, being swept by Northern Kentucky to send them home packing early into the Horizon League tournament, and capping off what was a sad ending, but otherwise a great season for Oakland Volleyball. No doubt about it. And again, we'll put this into perspective here. Like I mentioned, this is the most conference wins since 2017. And not only that, but we got all league honors to go on top of this one. And I know chronologically these came out before the tournament, but I wanted to at least wrap up the season before we get into that. So now getting into some of the season awards that were given out. Oakland would find themselves on the first team, as Emily Wickman would find herself on the first team of the Horizon League. And in addition to that, she was also named Defensive Player of the Year for the Horizon League, as she has just been everywhere all over the court all season long. She set, and I'll put a number to it, she set the single season digs record for the Golden Grizzlies. And I said I put a number to it, but let me go find that number. Excuse me. But Emily Wickman setting that record, 659 digs, a new school record, as she was named Defensive Player of the Year and earned all league first team honors. Wickman played in all 31 matches this season and was named Horizon League Volleyball Player of the Week on October 30th. I thought it was another day. She was a Horizon Player of the Week throughout the season. But that doesn't matter because you're Defensive Player of the Year, first team, one of the best in the league. For Emily Wickman, she is one of the seniors that will be graduating this season, unfortunately, for the Golden Grizzlies. But she caps it off with a historic season for the Golden Grizzlies. And keeping us with the Horizon League honors. Where'd it go? Over here. In addition to that, the second team would feature Golden Grizzly as well. Patty Cesarini finishing off her senior season with the second team all-league honor. And all-freshman team includes a Golden Grizzly as well. Gentry Brown, downtown Gentry Brown, as Kevin Beers like to put it in the arena, got her spot in the all-freshman team for the Horizon League. And even in the Sportsmanship Award finalists, Annika Prisby was among those nominated for the Sportsmanship Award. To put the Golden Grizzlies in every category of postseason awards, whether individual, first team, second team, freshman team, sportsmanship award, a Golden Grizzly was featured in each. So that wraps up a fantastic season for Oakland Volleyball. They got a lot of seniors to fill the shoes of for this season. You got Sarah Turner, you got Patty Cesarini. Excuse me, let me pull this up just to make sure. One moment here. But yeah, no doubt, Patty Cesarini, Sarah Turner, Anna Nye, and Kennedy Dolmage are some of the seniors that will have their shoes be filled in this next season. They've been pillar pieces of the program. Sarah Turner, a new addition for this year, but otherwise, those Golden Grizzlies have been there for a while. So it's going to be up to Coach Krista Rice and the coaching staff to be able to fill those shoes and build on to this season. Climb the ranks of the Horizon League in volleyball as well. Look to get deeper into the Horizon League tournament and potentially get themselves a first-round bye. We'll see what they do here. We'll be covering them on the GioMoShow this upcoming season when they start in August. So that'll wrap it up for the first segment of the GioMoShow. We talked about all about Oakland Volleyball and their past season in 2023 as part of our season review series here on the GioMoShow that we'll be doing throughout the summer, and we'll be covering track and field and swim and dive next week. That is a decision that was made just this moment here. We'll talk about track and field and swim and dive next season on the GioMoShow, but you can stay up to date on everything on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. If you're watching this afterwards, all of that is in the description here, but if you're listening live now, the GioMoShow, the GIOMO show, is where you can find me on social media, and Twitter, GIOMoSherry, WXOU is where you can find me. Use the hashtag #TheJoeMoShow to get connected with the show and stay up to date with what we got going on. So that'll wrap up this segment here. We'll head it over to the USPBL after this break here on WXOU. Welcome back here to the GioMoShow. A couple of messages about food safety education here from WXOU. Wash surfaces, utensils, and hands with soapy water while preparing food, especially when handling raw meat or eggs. Raw food may contain bacteria that can make you very sick or worse. 1 in 6 Americans will get food poisoning this year, and roughly 3,000 will unfortunately die. But you can keep your family safer by cleaning with soap and water as you go. Learn more about this and other important information. You can check out those steps at foodsafety.gov. That's foodsafety.gov. A public service announcement brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council. And on top of that, use different cutting boards so that bacteria in raw meats or seafood and their juices doesn't touch prep surfaces of other food like vegetables. Raw food may contain bacteria, once again, that can make you very sick or worse. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. 3,000 will die. But you can keep your family safe by separating raw meats and seafood from other foods. You can check this out as well as more information at foodsafety.gov. Once again, that's foodsafety.gov. A public service announcement brought to you by the USDA, the HHS, and the Ad Council. Now that my bosses are happy, we can return to the GioMoShow, your home for Oakland sports and beyond on 88.3 FM. The previous segment that we started at 2 o'clock, we talked all about Oakland University Volleyball and their 2023 season, getting the 5th seed in the Horizon League, making themselves a candidate in the tournament. Emily Wickman getting Defensive Player of the Year, as well as first-team honors, and so much more. You can go back on YouTube later on when this is posted, or wherever you find your podcasts, and find more about Oakland Volleyball last year. But for this segment coming up, we got the USPBL going into Week 5, rather finishing up Week 5, going into Week 6. And as you know, the GioMoShow is your home not only for Oakland sports. This is the beyond part of where your home for Oakland sports is, as we are the home of the USPBL. The United Shore Professional Baseball League played at Jimmy John's Field over in Utica, sporting 4 teams, an independent minor league baseball league of the Westside Woolly Mammoths, the Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers, the Utica Unicorns, and my Eastside Diamond Hoppers. I'm the biggest Frogs fan you'll ever find here in the USPBL, and I dare you to prove me otherwise. Find me a bigger Frog fan. I bet you can't. So in this Week 5, the Mammoths were the highlight team of the week, getting 3 wins, 2 of which over my Hoppers, unfortunately, and scoring 23 runs in that 3-game weekend they had. That's almost 8 runs a game. So the bats have been flying for the Mammoths as they got one of the best batters in the league, and Francis Florentino. Francis Florentino, of course, was mentioned as Player of the Week for the USPBL as he batted .417 in 1.167 slugging, 3 home runs, and a .659 WOBA. He's a fantastic batter. This is his 2nd Player of the Week nominee, and one of the engines behind the Westside Woolly Mammoths' crazy, crazy offense. And while we're on the subject here, let's go to Pitchers of the Week. And I mean plural Pitchers of the Week, because it looks like Connor Tomasic of the Utica Unicorns and the Eastside Diamond Hoppers' Pierce Banks shared the award for this week, as they both had phenomenal performances. Connor Tomasic pitched only 3 innings. In 3 innings, got 7 strikeouts and a .33 whip, no earned runs. So in 3 innings of work, a fantastic performance, worthy of such an award. But Pierce Banks, of course, letting it rip as he usually does. In 5 innings, he allowed no runs, 11 strikeouts, with a 58.3 whiff rate. So 2 fantastic pitchers for this week, as well as Francis Florentino, Player of the Week. A couple of trends here, like I mentioned. This is 2nd Player of the Week for Francis Florentino. This is his 2nd in 3 weeks. Pierce Banks, this is his 3rd Player of the Week award in 5 weeks of the USPBL season, as he's been one of the most dominant pitchers in this league. He had 2 in a row the other week, that streak being interrupted last week, but he's back on top of it for his 3rd in 4 weeks. Part of why the Diamond Hoppers continue to stand number 1 in the league. Looking at the standings, the Eastside Diamond Hoppers 9-5 this season, as they sit atop the rest of the league, as well as the East, as the Eastern Division that they share with the Utica Unicorns. Unicorns in 2nd place, closing the distance with the Hoppers. 8-6 is their record. Westside Woolly Mammoths closing the distance between them and the Unicorns as well. 7-5, while the Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers continue to struggle at 2-10 this season. So now we got most of the highlights here. Let's get into the game-by-game breakdown of Week 5 of the USPBL. It would start on June 13th, where the Westside Woolly Mammoths played against the Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers. 10-3 was the final score, as the Mammoths, after being down 1-0 in the first inning, would rally off 3 runs in the second inning, 2 runs in the third, 4 in the fifth, and 1 more in the eighth, as they would hold the Beavers to only 3 runs for the rest of the game. 10-3 was the first win for the Mammoths. The Mammoths would then play again the next day, June 14th, against my Diamond Hoppers, where my Hoppers had the 6-2 lead going into the 7th inning. But unfortunately, the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning for the Mammoths would include 2, 1, and 3 runs in each inning, respectively, as they were able to make the comeback and win it 8-7 over my Diamond Hoppers. That was the game that Pierce Banks pitched those 5 innings for 11 strikeouts, getting him the pitcher of the week. We now move to Saturday's doubleheader of the Utica Unicorns and the Beavers. Beavers would unfortunately get swept in this one. First game ending 2-1 in favor of the Unicorns. All of those runs coming in the 5th inning. 2 for the Utica Unicorns, 1 for the Beavers. The next game of that doubleheader, 4-2 would be the final score in favor of the Unicorns. Beavers would have the initial lead, 2-0, before being shut out for the rest of the game, as the Unicorns rallied off 4 runs in the last 2 innings to come back and win it and sweep the doubleheader against the Beavers. The final game of this week was the Diamond Hoppers and the Mammoths getting their rematch on Sunday. And the Mammoths would get this one too, sweeping my Hoppers. Diamond Hoppers would get the first lead, 1-0 in the second inning. It would be equalized in the third inning before the Hoppers would come back, get a 3-1 lead before giving it up in the final 2 innings, giving the Mammoths their second comeback win over the Hoppers this weekend, closing the distance between them and the rest of the league. So it was a quick run-through of this week's matchups. I didn't quite get to dive into them like I usually do, and I still got to get out to a game. I haven't been to a game this season. I had someone point that out to me this weekend, and I was furious at myself. I can't believe I let this all go by. 5 weeks of incredible Hoppers play, I guess except for this week, and I haven't seen any of it yet. Don't you worry. I'll be getting to Jimmy John's Field soon enough. Because what kind of Diamond Hoppers fan would I be if I don't go and see my Frogs? Come on. So that'll wrap it up for the USPBL update of Week 5. Once again, the standings. Eastside, Diamond Hoppers up in first place, 9-5. Unicorns, second place, 8-6. Mammoths, 7-5 in third. Beavers, 2-10 in fourth. And it's going to be tough for the Beavers to climb back into this one. But there's still plenty of baseball left. Anything can happen. So stay tuned for the next week of the GioMoShow. I'll tell you all about the week's 6 games. So that'll now wrap it up for this week's update of the USPBL. We'll be coming back with a little NBA talk, not only with the Boston Celtics winning the championship this weekend, but we'll also talk about Monty Williams and the future of the Detroit Pistons. Right here on the GioMoShow, 88.3 FM WXOU. Welcome back, everybody, to the GioMoShow, 88.3 FM WXOU, your home for Oakland sports and beyond. On 88.3 FM, we now venture into the beyond portion, further into the beyond portion of our show. We covered Oakland Volleyball at the top of the show. We did that for about 25 minutes. We then went into the USPBL, United Shore Professional Baseball League at Jimmy John's Field. We talked about the Week 5 action that just passed, and the current standings and how my Diamond Hoppers are still on top, but the gap is closing between them and second place. So we talked all about that. If you missed all of that, don't worry. The podcast will be uploaded soon after this show here, and you can go and watch that yourself on the YouTube channel, the GioMoShow YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcasts is where you can find the GioMoShow. But to wrap it up here, I want to talk about the NBA. And I want to preface it with preface it with this. I'm not the biggest NBA head. I'm not the biggest basketball head when it comes to strategy and technique and roster construction and game plan. That's not my bag, baby. if you want that, Jake's Takes, a podcast from Jake Masucci, one of the managers of Oakland University men's basketball, now going into his third year in the manager's spot. He's got Jake's Takes. That's his podcast. He talks all about the NBA. He knows ball. So if that's what you're looking for, go to Jake's Takes. But for those sticking with me on the GioMoShow here, I'd like to talk about the NBA in terms of optics and in terms of what I see as a distant fan, because I feel like there's a lot of people that are in that realm and universe as well. We don't watch every game, and especially when you're here in Detroit, there's no reason to watch the Pistons. We'll talk about the Pistons and Monty Williams a little bit after we talk about the Celtics winning the championship here, but there's not much to watch here, so naturally I'm not as in tuned with the NBA as I would be otherwise. And luckily for the NBA, I haven't been tuned in for 15 years because the Pistons haven't been good in that long. But hopefully that changes. So I want to preface all the NBA talk with that in mind, because I want to be honest with you guys. I'm not trying to like pose as this big basketball guy, but I'm just going to give you what I see from the little bit that I've watched and seen and have heard and am reading. So when it comes to Boston winning the championship and kind of talk about the playoffs as a whole, Boston winning, yeah, it's okay. It's fine. Everyone hates Boston. I don't like Boston in particular, but for them to win the championship, it's kind of the most boring result, because all season long, it's just been, wow, Boston is buzzsawing everybody. Wow, Boston's roster is insane. Wow, they're going to kill everybody. And you know what? They did. And it was just a foregone this was truly like a season that felt like a foregone conclusion from day one that the Celtics were going to win the finals. And that's exactly what happened. Unfortunately for me, I don't find that very interesting in terms of entertainment. I hate that's one of the biggest things in sports for me, is I hate knowing the result before it happens. The most interesting thing about sports for me is not knowing what the result is, not knowing who's going to be the big star, who's going to step up, who's going to guard this person. Is it an even matchup? Is it a fight to the end? Do you not know? Like, that's where sports are interesting. That's where sports are at its peak. When you got like Boston buzzsawing through the East, and I'm not saying I saw this coming, but buzzsawing through the Mavs in the finals, that was pretty boring. It's not interesting to me. They had just the best team with the best players and the most amount of best players. Their roster was loaded with Porzingis and Drew Holiday. By the way, Drew Holiday winning a championship with the Bucks and the Celtics after his first year being there. That's awesome. But, Drew Holiday, Porzingis, Derek White, those aren't even their best players. You got the Jays. So it's like that. The roster was just like this absolute juggernaut, and the Mavs did not have that kind of roster. So it was just like after like the first game, like you're like, okay, this is done. And especially like when it's 3-0, it's like, okay, this thing is wrapped up. I didn't tune in for a second of Game 4 because not a single team has ever come back from 3-0. So effectively, the series is over in 3 games, which completely sucks. It's so boring. The NHL Finals, what's the matter with me? The Stanley Cup Finals are that way too. The Panthers are up 3-0, and the Oilers are trying to make a comeback there. So at least that one's at least becoming a little bit interesting. But you just knew with the NBA Finals that it's just Boston's going to buzzsaw them, and they're just going to win it in Boston, which is where they should win it. A 5-game sweep was what the doctor ordered. You got to win it in Boston, or else it's just kind of lame to win it and rub it into into the few fans that are left in an opposing stadium. It's boring. So I like it that they won it in Boston, but it's just this held no entertainment for me. Opposed to like the first game. It was just the Mavericks could not keep up. And you know what? I don't know if anybody could have kept up with them. just because of that enormous roster. So it was the foregone conclusion. You ran into a good team in the finals. I'm not saying that the Mavs were perfect and should have and would have won it any other year. No, but it just happened to run into that matchup. So thus you get the predictable result. I thought it was very boring, and I especially throughout the Eastern playoffs when Boston was mysteriously injuring everybody on their way to the finals, I thought that was really boring too. Every team they played had a star that got injured, and therefore the season's over. The series is over. It's just, it sucks for me. A series is supposed to be a drawn-out, episodic mini, like a TV show. It's like a mini-series of a TV show that you follow all the way along. When they spoil the ending at like the first game or the second game, spoiling meaning the other team either stinks or the other guy gets injured. It's like spoiling the entire show. I don't want to watch it anymore. I already know what's going to happen. There's no more juice. So that was my feeling on this finals. Western Conference was a lot more interesting. The Timberwolves were a fantastic storyline and had a fantastic run, and it was really interesting to see like how they were kind of uniquely designed to beat the Nuggets, but not so much the Mavs. I thought that was super interesting because you really didn't know who was going to come out of it. East was not the same. So Boston wins it, and I have to mention Jason Tatum pretending to not pretending, but him like acting like he won the finals. Everything you've seen from him, media wise, is just like, it's like he doesn't. It's like he's Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands. He's just saying things that he thinks people would say or have said after they won the finals. We did it. Oh my God, we did it. And doing the Kanye quote and what they gonna say next, which is what Steph said after he won it. Like, it's like he Googled finals celebrations and practiced that before he went in front of the microphone. It's just it's the most awkward like reaction that I've ever seen. It was appalling. It's so hard to describe, but I told my brothers that, and they feel like this captured it the best. Like, it's like he was acting like he won the finals. It was so weird. And that's part of, like, for me, also a thing with the Boston Celtics is, like, at least, like, when they went to the finals the other year in 2022, they had Grant Williams, who was just, like, the most annoying teammate ever, and you knew he was just, like, blowing smoke up everybody and just talk. And I found him to be a little bit of a character, but the Jays are just blank slates. They are just robots that play basketball, and they're pretty good at it. And that's it. It's like, I got nothing interesting with this team. And they just happen to be the one that buzzed through everyone and won the finals. So I'll end it on there, but it was such a disappointing playoffs entertainment-wise. So now let's move on to the Detroit Pistons now. They fired Monty Williams this morning. And you know what? Good. And I don't think that, I'm not saying that like, oh, I'm the one guy who thinks it's a good thing that we let go of Monty Williams, but like, that was impressive to be able to do that and to be able to eat the amount of money that you owed him. Because you signed him for like, I don't know the whole figures, but it was like 5 years, $70 million, the most a coach has ever been paid. And in 1 year, you got to fire him and still pay all that money. But with Trajan Langdon, the new president of basketball operations, is being a president of basketball operations. He is doing things. And you know what? Whether it works out or not, they're trying. Now I can see that they're trying. You let Troy Weaver go. You let Monty Williams go. We'll see what he ends up doing with the roster. We'll see what he ends up doing in the draft. But darn it, right away, he's trying. Because there is no way that was going to work. Monty Williams whether it was personal reasons, that's fine. And, I'm not saying he's a horrible human because he had things in his personal life going on. But sports are about results, okay? You have a 28-game losing streak. You have the worst season in your franchise's long history. Yeah, you're going to get fired. Sorry, it's nothing personal. It's just business. You cannot recover from a 14-win season with the way the 14-win season went, where right out of the gate, there was no energy, there was no effort, there was no trying, there was no improvement. There was no clue as to what you were doing, is what it felt like for the Pistons. You cannot bring that back because it's such an absolute failure that you have to just throw it away. You have to burn the tape, forget about it, because it will only like having that loom over you can only bring disaster again. It's not something where like the Timberwolves losing in the Western Conference Finals or losing the playoffs and they'll be back. That's not a motivating loss to have 14 wins in a season. That is a demoralizing loss and disaster of a season. So yes, you needed the absolute sweeping change of firing Troy Weaver and Monty Williams. So I'm happy. I'm a little bit happier now with the Pistons because I've said it, and now I haven't mentioned it often because no reason to talk about the Pistons on an Oakland sports show when they stink. But now that we see this, I'm buying back in just for a little bit. I know the roster needs its moves. You got to make your decision because listen. I agree with the sentiment, which is what I'm hearing around for Detroit sports, that when you're that bad, there are no sacred cows. There are no, there's nobody you have to keep. I know that Cade Cunningham is most likely going to end up being paid, but, everybody is on the table. You know why? Because none of it has worked. You have nothing to build with. You're trying to build an engine with toothpicks. You got to get rid of the toothpicks, and you need nuts and bolts and cylinders and crankshafts. You need actual pieces. You need actual, dare I say, pistons for this engine to run. You can't make it out of paper and toothpicks, dude. That's the roster. And yeah, you might make it look nice. You might have a few good statistical games, but you put your finger on that engine and it crumbles up. Because it's not a real engine. It's not a real basketball team. It is made of paper and toothpicks. You need steel. You need to get pieces, and you need to put that thing together. So there is no player that I believe is safe. I love Cade, but let me ask this. If you're Cade Cunningham as a player, and all that you know in the NBA is losing, are you going to be able to recover from that with the Pistons, with the team that you have been losing with? You don't know what winning is like. And it's different than in football. Like Dan Campbell, Dan Campbell started off 0-11, and they even had a tie before they got their first win. And at least in those games, and football is completely different because upsets I would say more possible in football just because of how wild and limited how limited the opportunities are for each team. But that aside, they got their first win and got the taste of winning. But for the NBA, it's not just getting that one win and starting to spark. There's 82 games in a season. Losses just happen as a result of the law of averages. You know what I mean? It's not like the one win will spark the rest of it. You need a winning season. You need stakes. You need playoffs. You need an actual experience of a full, long sample of winning to feel like you know what it's like to win. Otherwise, listen, Cade is great, injuries aside, but you don't know what winning. I don't know how you can keep him believing that he's going to be the cornerstone of the team. It's not his fault. I mean, maybe it is a little bit because he was playing, but, like, is it totally Cade's fault? No. There wasn't a real basketball team around him. You lost 28 games in a row. Like, come on. You need, like, okay, you pay him fine. I'm fine with keeping him, but, like, everybody else has got to go, or has to be able to go. You know, I love Duren. I love his 20 points, 20 rebound games, but, like, you know, how far is he going to how far is he going to get you? Jaden Ivey. You know, I guess it'll depend on what the new coach wants to do with him, but Monty had wanted nothing to do with him for some reason. So maybe you could get assets for that. It's just at this point, like, you got to rebuild the rebuild for the Detroit Pistons, you know? So nothing is off the table, especially the GM and the head coach. And Trajan Langdon is showing the ability to do that. I love that. If it's not working, it must be replaced. That's from an engineer's mindset. I'm in my engineering degree, and you know what? If the wrench doesn't work, you need a new wrench. You can't just pretend that it's screwing the bolt in because it is not. You need new tools. And if you can't make it work with a correct wrench, you need a new worker. You need a new person using that wrench. And that's what we're starting to see. That's what I'm liking to see. And I just like that they're trying. Because before they were not. There is no way you could say that they were truly trying. At least last year and even some of the years before. Like, it hasn't been good in 15 years. You're telling me that you tried your hardest for 15 years and you can't get anything going? I don't agree with that. I believe it comes from ownership as well, but you know, we'll bash ownership another day. This is a positive note for the Tom Gore's ownership of the team. Although I do still wish the Palace existed, but anyway. So that'll wrap up my thoughts. I didn't have any notes for this, by the way. I don't know if you guys could tell, but that was my notes on the NBA. Boston winning the finals. Monty Williams being fired from the Pistons and looking a little bit up in Detroit basketball. Pretty soon we'll be having Kyle Reese of Oakland University Recreation and Wellbeing. He's the manager of all the club sports that go on at Oakland University. We'll be talking to him on Friday, so heads up for that. Get ready for Kyle Reese. We had him on an interview last year as well and kind of geared up our coverage of club sports and the rest of the interviews in that way. So get ready for that on Friday. And we'll be back next week on the GioMoShow with more Oakland sports. We'll have swim and dive and track and field as our season review. Week 6 of the USPBL and whatever else happens throughout the week. So that'll do it from the GioMoShow, everybody. My name is Giovanni Moscieri. You've been listening to 88.3 FM WXOU. We'll see you next week, hopefully on time, Tuesday at noon on WXOU.